Okay. So if you were joining earlier, you didn't hear anything because my microphone wasn't set up properly. However, now it is. All right, so government contracting refers to the process through which government agencies and organizations enter into agreements. If you were joining earlier, you didn't hear anything because my microphone wasn't set up properly. However, now it is. All right. Through which organizations enter into agreements with private sector businesses, nonprofit organizations, or other entities to purchase goods, services, or both. So the purpose of government contracting is to fulfill various public needs, support national objectives, and maintain essential government operations. The types of goods and services purchased by the government. So it's important to note that this list is not exhaustive, and just because it's not mentioned doesn't mean that the government doesn't buy it. You'll have the opportunity to go into Sam.gov and go ahead and make a search, and you can find the craziest things that the government buys. The most crazy thing I saw ever that the government buys, the thing you'd think they would never buy, was support for Catholic priests is as part of one area of the country for one of the branches of the military. So they were hiring some sort of support for Catholic priests. So that to me was the craziest thing that I saw purchased by the government. Okay, so the first thing, defense and security equipment. This is probably very obvious. Weapon systems, vehicles and aircraft, surveillance, communication, and cybersecurity systems. And if you have tanks or aircraft, then you might want to approach the federal government because they do buy things like that. All right, information technology and software. This is another big area of purchase. Hardware, software, and network infrastructure. IT consulting, support, and maintenance services. Moving on to infrastructure and construction. This refers to buildings and roads. Building and facility construction, renovation and maintenance, road, bridge, and transportation infrastructure projects. Then we have professional and consulting services, management consulting, strategy development and process improvement, engineering, architectural, and environmental services, research and development, which includes scientific research in areas like health, energy, and technology, innovation and technology development support. Then we have healthcare services and products, pharmaceuticals, medical devices and equipment, healthcare management and support services. Then we have training and education services, workforce development and training programs, curriculum development and educational consulting. And moving on to logistics and transportation, freight, shipping, and warehousing services, fleet management and maintenance. Then we have facilities management and maintenance, janitorial, landscaping, and utility services, security and access control systems, human resources and staffing, recruitment, talent management, and employee benefit services, temporary and permanent staffing solutions. Then we have office supplies and equipment, furniture, stationery, and electronic devices, printing, copying, and document management services. So this list is not exhaustive, and as the government's procurement needs are vast and continually evolving. All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about the federal acquisition process. First of all, we have the planning and requirements definition phase. In here, the government will identify the need for goods and services, define the scope, specifications, and performance requirements, and estimate the costs and establish a budget. Then when they move on to market research, and so in this phase, they're putting out the feelers to figure out how they're going to get these needs met. So they research potential suppliers and contractors, assess market conditions, trends, and pricing, and then determine the procurement methods, e.g. small business set-aside, sole source, and competitive bidding. And we'll be talking a little bit about each one of these in other slides. Next phase is solicitation development. Here is they develop a solicitation package, including a request for proposal, or a request for quotation, or an invitation for bid. So there's different types of mechanisms that they'll use to request that suppliers will place proposals on this particular need. Then the next is to specify the evaluation criteria, terms and conditions, and submission requirements. Then moving on to solicitation, release, and advertisement. They publish the solicitation on a public platform such as Sam.gov or on agency websites. Allow sufficient time for potential contractors to prepare and submit proposals or bids. So here, what we're talking about is anywhere from a few days up to a couple months. Sometimes you'll find opportunities out there that have bids that are open until a couple years from now. So presumably those are typos. The most common time frame is about 30 days. And this should give you plenty of time once you've identified that this is an opportunity that is a good opportunity for your company. Then you'll have plenty of time to review it, go through all the documentation, and figure out how you're going to make this proposal. Next step is the proposal evaluation and selection. After they've received proposals, they'll evaluate those submissions based on predefined criteria such as technical expertise, past performance, and cost. In the past, cost was really the highest or the most highly considered variable. But in today's marketplace, the government really is a lot more balanced in its approach to choosing the right companies to go with. So continuing with this section, we have conducting negotiations, if applicable, to refine proposals and reach the best value. So let's say they have multiple proposals that they want to consider, and they may go back and forth to figure out which one is the one they want to go with. And they select the winning contractor and notify the unsuccessful bidders. And then we have the contract award and execution, where we have finalized the contract terms, including pricing, deliverables, and performance metrics, obtain the necessary approvals and signatures, notify the contract of the award, and begin the contract performance. The next phase is the contract administration and management. Now, congratulations, you have a contract. And so the government will monitor the contractor's performance and ensure compliance with the contract terms, address any issues or modifications needed during the contract period, and process invoices and payments according to the contract terms. This last one, of course, is the most important step in any contract. And next, we have the contract closeout, where we verify that all deliverables have been received and performance requirements are met, conduct a final assessment and lessons learned for future procurements, and close out the contract and archive the documentation. So these stages represent a typical procurement lifecycle. However, specific processes and requirements may vary depending on the agency, the complexity of the procurement, and applicable regulations. So moving on, we're going to talk about the key regulations and policies that you need to be aware of with government opportunities. First of all, we have the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. The FAR is the primary set of rules and guidelines that governs the acquisition process for all federal executive agencies. It standardizes the procurement procedures, ensures consistency, and aims to promote fairness, efficiency, and transparency in government contracting. The FAR covers topics such as acquisition planning, contract formation, contract administration, and various procurement methods and types. It also addresses socioeconomic policies such as small business participation, labor laws, and environmental considerations. For more, you can find the entire FAR is available on acquisition.gov. And I will just say that when you're making proposals, when you're reviewing opportunities, you're often going to find them referencing particular numbers in the FAR, and they will actually give you a link to those applicable sections where they want to make sure that you follow certain guidelines closely. So you don't necessarily need to read and memorize the entire FAR. Next, we have the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, which is specific to the Department of Defense and its components, such as the Army, Navy, and Air Force. So it addresses unique defense-related policies and requirements, including national security considerations, export controls, and special procurement programs. DFARS also establishes additional contractor responsibilities such as cybersecurity and supply chain risk management. And then we have agency-specific FAR supplements. And there are a number of these, and a few of them are the GSA Acquisition Regulation, next the Department of Energy Acquisition Regulation, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration FAR supplement. So different agencies can have their own specific rules that you need to follow. And so if you want to get into any of these areas, you might want to review those in particular. Next, we have the Small Business Act and the Small Business Administration Regulations, which establishes various programs and policies to support small business participation in federal contracting. The SBA implements these programs through regulations and guidelines such as the 8A Business Development Program, the Hub Zone Program, and the Women-Owned Small Business Program. Other relevant laws and regulations include the Buy American Act, the Service Contract Act, the Davis-Bacon Act, and the Trade Agreements Act. So contractors must comply with these rules when pursuing and executing government contracts. And yes, you can go ahead and go read everything out there and memorize it all, and I'm sure it is not going to hurt at all. But most of the time, you can follow the guidelines that are established in each opportunity. There'll be some links and things so that you can review those in particular. Okay, so next we're going to introduce Sam.gov. Sam.gov is the System for Award Management, SAM. It's the official U.S. government portal for federal procurement. Some key functions of Sam.gov are it's a centralized platform for contractor registration, a repository for federal procurement opportunities, and a database for contract award information. Benefits of Sam.gov is it streamlines the contracting process for businesses and agencies. It provides access to a wide range of contracting opportunities. It enhances transparency and competitiveness in government contracting. And that's it. So Sam.gov registration is mandatory for business seeking federal contracts. So the good news is registering on Sam.gov is free. It does require a UEI, which will be issued to you, and it takes a matter of a couple days. Sometimes it's a couple hours. And in the old days, you had to apply for actually when I was setting up my Sam.gov profile, I had to apply for a DUNS number from Dun and Bradstreet, but that is no longer the case. You also have to have an EIN, TIN, and other essential information about your business. So it must be updated annually to maintain active status, and this might just entail you running through the screens very quickly and making sure that nothing is changed. The only thing you might want to make sure you update is your revenue numbers. So you can learn more about all of this at sam.gov. So now I'm going to run through our own platform that we created to help you manage government contracting opportunities. It's called softyops.com. So first of all, when you sign up on SoftYops, you're going to need to set some filters. You're going to want to set some filters so that all the government contracting opportunities will be filtered according to your own specific business needs. So what we see here is NAICS codes, and the contracting offices for the U.S. government used to use SIC codes up until the 90s. And in the 90s, the NAICS system was developed because the industries were changing so much, and with technologically advanced things happening, they wanted to make sure to cover all those industries, and they would have had to really revamp the whole SIC system. So the NAICS system was developed, and if you have SIC codes right now for your business, you're going to want to figure out what your NAICS codes are, and you'll need those for when you register on sam.gov. You'll also be able to set keywords you could see the ones for my own business. I have custom software, also software development, and you can add as many terms as you want. It is really up to infinity. And What happens is every early morning, when we download all the opportunities from Sam.gov, we will run those filters and put them into your My Ops area so that you can see the opportunities that pertain to you. Speaking of My Opportunities, when you click My Opportunities, you will see the opportunities, like I said, that pertain to your particular search. And what my recommendation is to focus on the set aside. So if you're a small business, then you'll want to focus on the small business set aside. And let's talk about set asides really quickly here. It is a huge opportunity for our small businesses and for businesses that have certain categories. For example, minority-owned businesses. You also have veteran-owned small businesses, service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. So there's a lot of different categories. Women-owned small businesses. So the government is required to spend at least 23% of any contract over $1 million and 23% in general in small businesses. So that means if you have a vendor that let's say they're doing $100 million a year and they get a government contract worth $10 million, and that is not an uncommon contract size when you're a large vendor. So that contract is required to be awarded $2.3 million of that, which is 23%, is required to be allocated to small businesses. So if you have a small business, that means you can pick up some of those dollars with those large vendors. So it's encouraged that you would develop relationships, reach out to some of those vendors. When you see them getting the awards, reach out to them and say, I'd like to pick up some of that small business set aside, and here's my company, and here's what we do. And hopefully you can pick up some of those dollars. So when you click on an opportunity, here is the page that you get, and we have the details of the opportunity, and these just come from Sam.gov. You have the contract opportunity settings, where you can like the opportunity, you can submit you can say that you've submitted a bid or a successful, or that you're not interested. You can add notes as well as add files for the opportunity. Let's move on to contracting officers. So contracting officers are the officers with whom you will deal when you want to land a particular opportunity. So in softops.com, we'll show you, when you go to look at the opportunity contracting officers, you'll see the number of opportunities that are currently active or open for this contracting officer. When you click on a contracting officer's name, then you're going to get the information about this contracting officer, as well as listing all the opportunities, whether they're active or in the past. You can also send this contracting officer to your CRM so that you can start to manage that relationship. Maybe you want to send some emails or make some phone calls. All right, and then we have features coming soon. We're going to be adding competitive research, where we're going to allow you to review other vendors, contact other contractors as well. Just like you can contract contracting officers, we're going to allow you to contract other contractors and join up for contract teaming. So contract teaming is where multiple vendors will join together, and they'll go into making a proposal together, and the government will consider that as a single proposal, but it will be coming from multiple vendors. Thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment on this video, and I'll be happy to answer it in subsequent videos.